I've always believed that love and lust are two sides of the same coin. In the beginning, it's all fireworks and butterflies, that exhilarating rush that makes the rest of the world blur. Everything feels new, exciting, and infinite. But as relationships deepen, so does the need for something more than passion. Conversations become necessary, the kind where you lay your heart bare and hope the other person holds it carefully. Among these talks, there's one that feels particularly daunting: discussing sex. I never understood why the mere thought of it made my palms sweat and my voice falter, but it always did. It was a second date when I first encountered this peculiar discomfort. The setting was perfect. A cozy cafe bathed in soft amber light, the smell of fresh coffee weaving through the air. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, weaving between dreams, past mistakes, and little quirks that made us laugh. It was the kind of connection I had always craved, and for a moment, it felt like nothing could disrupt it. Then, out of nowhere, the subject of intimacy came up. "So," they asked, leaning in slightly, "how do you feel about taking things to the next level?" I froze. My mind raced through 1,000 possible answers, each more awkward than the last. I think it's something we can explore together. I finally stammered. The words sounded foreign, clunky, like they didn't belong to me. An uncomfortable silence lingered before the conversation picked up again, but the moment stayed with me. That was when I realized how ill-equipped I was to talk about sex. It wasn't the act itself that frightened me. It was the vulnerability it required, the willingness to be honest about desires, fears, and boundaries. It felt like stepping into the unknown, unsure of how it would be received. Years passed, and I thought I had grown wiser, more comfortable in my skin. Yet, when it came to the subject of intimacy, I found myself in the same awkward space. This time, it was with someone I truly cared for, someone who made me feel seen in ways I hadn't experienced before. But even with this person, the thought of discussing sex felt like navigating a tightrope. One wrong step and everything could collapse. I decided to ease into it, thinking that subtle hints and gradual conversations would break the tension. I sent carefully worded texts, comments that tiptoed around the subject, hoping they'd pick up on my intent. "We should talk about what makes us feel connected," I wrote once, hoping it sounded casual. Instead, it led to a meandering conversation about favourite movies and travel plans. It was clear I hadn't hit the mark. The more I tried, the more my efforts backfired. The weight of what I wasn't saying seemed to hang in the air between us, creating an invisible wall. One evening, as we sat together watching a movie, they turned to me with a concerned look. "You seem distant lately. Is everything okay?" they asked. My chest tightened. I wanted to explain everything, how much I cared for them, how much I wanted us to have an open and honest connection, even about the difficult things. But instead, I hesitated, afraid I'd say the wrong thing. "I just think there's something we should talk about," I said vaguely, my voice barely audible. The tension was unbearable. I knew the problem wasn't them, it was me. My fear of vulnerability, of exposing my innermost thoughts and feelings, held me back. I kept asking myself why it was so hard to bridge this gap when what I wanted was something deeper, something real. Sitting in the park with my best friend, I finally let it all out. The frustration, the awkwardness, the fear of saying the wrong thing, it spilled from me like a dam breaking. They listened patiently, nodding as I fumbled through my thoughts. When I finished, there was a long pause, the kind that makes you question if you've said too much. Then they smiled. "You're overthinking it," they said simply. "Talking about sex doesn't have to be this monumental, scary thing. It's just a conversation, like any other. The key is honesty and timing. Find a moment when you're both at ease and just be real. Start with your feelings, not theirs. Let them know it's coming from a place of connection, not criticism. That advice felt like a light bulb moment. I had been so caught up in trying to get it perfect that I forgot the most important part, being genuine. Later that evening, I sat down with my partner, determined to do things differently. We had just finished dinner, and the air between us was warm, relaxed. My heart raced as I began, but I kept reminding myself of my friend's words. "I've been thinking a lot about us," I started. "I feel like we have something really special, and I want us to be able to talk about everything, especially the things that might feel hard to say. I want to know what makes you feel good, what makes you feel loved, and I want to share what that means for me too." Their response was immediate and heartfelt. "I've been feeling the same way but wasn't sure how to bring it up. I'm so glad you did." In that moment, the awkwardness melted away. What replaced it was a sense of closeness I hadn't expected. Talking about sex wasn't just about the physical. It was about trust, understanding, and the willingness to show up for each other fully. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't have to be. It was real, and that was more than enough.